there, nice to have you with us once again. This picturesque town is filled with the most ancient temples, some of which date as far back as 3,200 years ago. Almost directly opposite us we have the River Nile, whose source can be traced as far away as Lake Victoria in Uganda. I'm Yvonne Bassett. Don't go away.
Egypt, as the old saying goes, was the gift of the Nile. But the Egyptians believed that there was one thing even mightier than the Nile, the sun. The god they called Ra, the god who created everything. Each morning with its rising, the sun called the people to worship. Each night in setting, he would die. But the next morning he would rise again, never failing. He was eternal. It was believed that when a king died, he became one with Ra. And so the Egyptians accorded their rulers absolute power. And this power in return was used to build for the people an extraordinary empire. An empire of buildings so enormous, an art so exquisite. We are still trying to understand how such wonders were created. How stones from the desert were turned into timeless monuments. Some of the oldest buildings on earth are here, preserved by the desert air. Some of them are so old they had already stood 1,000 years when Tutankhamun was born. The enormous obelisks of Karnak were carved from single blocks of granite, which were moved hundreds of miles by boat along the Nile. Giant figures of Ramses the Great are still some of the largest figures ever sculpted from solid stone. We don't know how they did it, but we do know why. To honor the pharaohs, both in life and after death. For centuries, the land of Egypt has remained constantly within the shadows of the ancient pyramids. These timeless triangles that rise out of the mist like specters from the past are very real reminders of an era in which the power of conviction and belief in the afterlife ruled the lives of the Egyptians. Initially, these pyramids were created to house the dead bodies of royal families. At the death of a pharaoh or a queen, the custom demanded that all their worldly riches be buried along with them for use in the afterlife. This practice eventually transformed the pyramids into priceless treasure stores, and as such became obvious targets for thieves who felt no compunction about robbing the dead. With the constant looting of these priceless homes came the need for the royal bodies to be buried elsewhere. And so, beneath the surface of the earth, the valleys became the next secret burial places.
The area here belongs to the Old Kingdom, exactly by the second king of the 4th dynasty, King Cheops, the owner of this building in front of you.
Is it a building?
Yeah, it's a building, but what building is it? This is a tomb, the biggest tomb all over the world, a royal tomb for King Cheops, the second king of the 4th dynasty.
Today, these colossal monuments still hold countless hoards of riches within their depths, which are yet to be discovered, as no one can tell their exact locations within the maze of passageways that make up the tomb, making it virtually impossible to tell exactly where the next tomb will be found.
My bad. No camera. Me too.
No camera.
It's amazing how monuments such as those, which have been there and excavated and researched and studied for hundreds of years, can still reveal new secrets. And I'm sure you followed the recent discovery of a new plaster wall, and now they're trying to get to create or build a small robot to try to penetrate and see what's beyond that. Yes, all our monuments are still keeping many, many secrets. Yes.
According to legend, the Great Pyramid required 100,000 men for 30 years before it was completed. And the work was done not by slaves, but free men of Egypt, who believed that they were privileged to labor in honor of their pharaoh, and that they would be justly rewarded for it in the afterlife. They probably saw the pyramid shape as a mystical link between the earth and the sky, providing the pharaoh's soul with a stairway to heaven. Perhaps that is why all of the Giza's pyramids are built in perfect alignment with certain stars. That feat obviously took the knowledge of astronomy. They used their minds to perfect the knowledge of science, mathematics, and engineering. As we approach the blocks that make up the vast tomb, each one becomes distended into terrifying proportions.
There are over 113 pyramids in Egypt, but this is the largest of them all. It's called the Horfus Pyramid, and we are right at the entrance to it.
Inside the tomb is complete darkness, and with the use of a torch we decipher Egyptian images that were buried along with the dead to help them reach the afterlife. For they believed that these pictures supplied the answers to the questions that they would be asked along the way. DNA analysis by scientists is helping to identify the family ties of the royal mummies and to give us clues as to how they lived and died. At the highest point of the desert towers the Great Sphinx of Giza, with the head of a man and the body of a lion. Made entirely of solid limestone rock, the Great Sphinx was built more than 4,700 years ago. With the passage of time, it has become partly buried by the shifting sands of the desert, and was at one time battered by vandals. But it still remains an undisputed symbol of the majesty and might of ancient Egypt.